possible. So our presenter is Charlie Danoff from Mr. Danoff's bringing the board to
All right. Morning, everybody. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. All right. So let's start to say thank you to all of you for coming, and thank you, Mr. Wiley, and this whole conference, all the talks. It's been amazing learning from all of you the past few days. Today will be as well. So the talk today is collaborative lesson planning, offline via GitHub and via Google Drive. I have an Etherpad. The short URL is is.gd/opened13clp. Sorry, it's a little long, but if you're not familiar with Etherpad, it's just like it's a web application where you can just write. If you guys go to the URL, gd/opened13clp, you can just type questions or suggestions here, and have some links where you can learn more about past work I've done down here. You just go in and type no login or anything required. And then if you want to download the slides, it's is.gd/clp slides. All right. So who is this bearded gentleman? We're taking liberty with gentlemen, but we can go with it. And so I'm owner of Mr. Danoff's Teaching Laboratory, the for-profit sole proprietorship in the education and publishing industries. Just a fancy way of saying it's like the business name for my freelance work. I publish OER in the English as a second language field, as well as publish books and that type of stuff. And I'm the co-creator of pedagogy.net and editor of pedagogy.org. Pedagogy is a peer learning theory. You can download the latest book edition of our handbook, it's like pedagogy is a theory of how you teach, how a teacher teaches people. Pedagogy is a theory of how peers learn together. And my day job, I work at the College of Chicago, which is a post-secondary English as a second language school in the city of Chicago, and I teach the intensive English program class. Collaborative lesson planning. Obviously, teachers have already collaborated and have been for a very long time. Whether that be something as often as simple as in the teacher's office, bouncing an idea off one another, or talking to their students about what the students want. That's been happening for a long time, of course, and is very important. What I'm suggesting and what is already happening is collaborative lesson planning, which uses the internet. And so I guess for sort of an idea of the philosophy or idea, it's kind of like the water cycle. And then to borrow from a Japanese idea, for the Japanese members in the audience, excuse my pronunciation, but the term is Jugyo Kenkyu, and it's about teachers working together, and there's 4 parts: planning, implementing, reflection, and revising. And so it's kind of like the water cycle, like the water's in the cloud is like planning, and it falls down the rain, implementing, and then revising, it's underground, reflecting, and then, reflecting underground, revising is back in the ocean, and then starts again and again. Hopefully each time it gets better. So one way to do it is offline, and it's been happening since binders and paper's been around. So at our school we have a nice library for teachers with old binders from people who have taught the same class, and I can go in there and see what they did before, or then I organize my stuff so that people can see what I've done and take ideas. And that's very important to have a physical copy, in my opinion, of what you're doing. And to that end, this is a book I'll talk more about later, but it's a wiki book I made off of Wikiversity, and it says my lesson plans from half a semester I taught in China. And then this is a pedagogy handbook, which is kind of related, and this is the Uncertainty Principle, a zine I publish that has a pedagogy lesson plan in there. So I hand these around, you can look at them. And then, offline is still definitely important. There should be a print version, absolutely. just for record keeping, and just sometimes it's just easier at a given school to do it through a binder than going through the web. So how to collaboratively plan lessons. We're doing online. MediaWiki, which is the software behind Wikipedia, is a wonderful resource because it's free software. It's got the GNU license, and a lot of people can edit it. And so one person can put up a lesson plan, and then somebody can make comments on the talk page, and then they can edit it, and everything's kept track of. And you can easily copy and paste into a new page. GitHub is a newer technology. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. And I'll walk through it. Well, Git is the software. GitHub is one place to use Git. I'll do a brief walkthrough. It was very intimidating for me at first, but I had a friend who showed me how to do it, and it's not that bad once you get into it. Google Drive is what our school uses, and Google Drive is a wonderful resource as well. It's not free software, but it's a wonderful resource. It's very user-friendly. You can upload Word docs or LibreOffice documents very easily and edit them and share them. Peergogy is kind of like the peer learning tools or approaches teachers can use to work together. And then a daily blog post is, in my opinion, very important. I try to do that at the end of every class, post of what we did that day and send it to the students. So that way they have a record they can check, or if they miss class, they can see it, as well as online, that other teachers can find what I'm actually doing. Because what you do and the plan versus what happens aren't always the same thing. Okay, so you got your plan, you put it up on one of those places, and then what license do you choose? So there's many options. There's Creative Commons by, non-commercial, non-derivative. It's Creative Commons by, non-commercial. Non-derivative there's wonderful reasons to choose all of these. Non-derivative makes it more difficult for other people to use your work. They can see it, they can't remix it. Non-commercial there's a lot of good reasons to use non-commercial. I work at a for-profit ESL school, so therefore legally I am not allowed to use non-commercial resources. So that is one limit of that license if you choose to use it. Certain people will not be able to use your work, even if they don't necessarily want to make a profit from it, if they just want to use it in their own classes, that limits it. Creative Commons by, share alike. That's very similar to the GNU license, so a lot of history there. That's a great resource. And Creative Commons by is even more open. And then public domain is what I prefer, the CC0. Whenever I can, I try to use that, just because that makes it as easy as possible for idea sets to happen, and because it can mix with any of these, which is wonderful. All right, my work, the URLs are kind of long, but you can download the slides and click them. So this site is early effort. It has resources for teaching English as a foreign language in Japan. Then the book I'm handing around, the electronic version of that is on Wikiversity. I made a short 10-lesson textbook for teaching adult ESL. It's a ENG 099, Conversational American English. You can find that, and that is public domain license, or dedicated to the public domain. I remixed a very 100-year-old English textbook I found on Project Gutenberg. And since it's 100 years old, it's public domain. It's very easy to use. And then my classes I use now, this is our class blog. You can find the daily blog posts as well as links to other resources on there. And then just going back to Japan, where I started teaching English, as a brief little story of how I got into this. So I wasn't trained as a teacher in college, majored in English and economics, and I didn't need to be a trained teacher for the job. And we got some training, but I wanted to get a little more preparation and find resources to use in my class. And so I was searching online in 2008, and it was very difficult for me to find. There were some English resources certainly, but sometimes they would have a really cool picture of Superman, or a picture of Mickey Mouse, which is wonderful and makes it exciting for the students. But it's unlikely those teachers contacted Disney or DC for the rights to those images. So therefore, if I wanted to then upload that, remix it and upload my own version, obviously that would be illegal, I'm sure. I mean, I wouldn't get caught or anything, but the issue is more, you want something that can be paid forward a lot. If you use proprietary stuff that you don't have permission with, that is much less likely to happen. So this is all good and everything, but I mean, I'm sure teachers who are listening to this are saying, you know, I have a life. I have friends, I have family, some of you have children, and those all take lots of time. And so and then you have to do, I mean, this whole idea of sharing lessons online is nice, but I mean, you need to like get ready for tomorrow, you need to review today. That's a reality, that has to happen. And then it takes 20 more minutes or 30 more minutes to share this stuff, and then to make it easy to find, it's a lot to ask. So this image is, this guy is coming up and this girl's kind of annoyed. So it's like, annoyed, I want to do it, I have a life. No talking, but anyway, so how do you find the time? How do you find the energy? There are no easy answers. Well, sorry. And lesson plans aren't always useful. Wonderful presentation in this room the other day by Spin TX, part of the Coral effort at the University of Texas. And she pointed out how like lesson plans for a given level at one school do not necessarily translate to another school smoothly at all. Or maybe the one school you have 15 students, another school you have 40. It's a different approach. So those aren't always like transferable, although you can adapt them. It's not always an easy thing. So another thing you can do is if you can organize another time, more time, you can organize them to a textbook, which might be a little more easier for more people to use as opposed to an individual lesson plan. There's like a series of them that can adapt them easier. Or I found that worksheets and quizzes are very friendly to use because they're like quick and you can adapt them or change them quickly. They're also useful for students. Okay, so why do this? Well, hopefully if you're here, it's fun for you. So it's kind of like exciting and you're sharing with the world community of teachers. It's all very nice and it's interesting. And then more practically, you build a portfolio, which you can then, at your current job, you can build that up. And if you go for another job, you can say like, yes, I'm a good teacher, trust me, but also these are specific lessons I have used in class. You can see them, you can see what happened and what the plan was, what it actually did, as opposed to just like trusting me and relying on my resume. And also in theory, if this works, so the idea would be like, there's like one textbook, like let's say an OER textbook's out there, and then all the science teachers using that textbook put up their lesson plans every day for a semester. Then there were 10 teachers who did that. Then the next semester, like a new teacher coming in, they would have 10 different choices for applying for different contexts to use in their own classes and adapt. And so instead of rebuilding the wheel, which is kind of a metaphor in this world we're in, you could just start with that. And it would still take time, but maybe even as much time, maybe a little more, but the time would be richer. I mean, you'd be building off something that's proven, that's been tried in class, if it worked or not. You could see that, and then your time would be better spent. And also maybe another way to think about it, T.S. Eliot, some of you may already know this, but like when he wrote The Wasteland, he was working at Lloyd's Bank. So like, there's an idea that it is possible to do like world-shattering work while having a day job. And then this is a little more pie in the sky again. Ideally, teachers, we can be examples for our students, and we can use free and Libre formats and software as much as possible. These make it as easy as possible for the 4 R's, revise, remix, reuse, and redistribute. LibreOffice and OpenOffice are alternatives to Microsoft Office, and they're nice because not everyone in the world can afford Microsoft Office, and not everyone in the world can afford to update every time. And LibreOffice is free, it has presentations, that's what I use for this. as presentation, not that you guys think this is an amazing presentation, but presentation software, writing software, Excel turning spreadsheet software is all free. So if you have your files in that format, anybody in the world, if they don't, they can download the software for free and use it, as opposed to having sort of an artificial paywall of Microsoft. Nothing against Microsoft. And then also, again, ideally, you'd be using the new Linux as the operating system with which to do this, because it's free, and you don't have to pay for new updates for iOS or anything else. Again, those are all wonderful softwares. This is just, in my opinion, a better option for education. So another example of how trying to implement this is the textbook I mentioned earlier, Conversational American English. This is the Conversational American English MOOC. It could be MOOC in parentheses, more like a mini open online course. I had about 2 or 3 students. But nevertheless, as our keynote said yesterday, numbers aren't important with OER. So I try to make this course as like remixable and usable for collaborative lesson planning as possible. So we do Google Hangouts for the videos. Those are all licensed CC BY. And then as much as possible, the textbook and other resources, I try to give a CC 0. So I've done this twice. I'm going to do it again in January. And yes, that's an example of me trying to get this done. And then, so best practices, and I should say this is kind of a draft. But so when you put your lesson plans online, you need to put lesson objectives and class information on top. That's just good pedagogy. And also then somebody who finds it, if you don't have objectives or like class information on how big your class is on top, it's going to take them more time to see if it's appropriate for what they want to learn. It's kind of like tagging. You should also tag it. You should attribute everything, so even if you use public domain resources, still attribute it to the original author. And obviously if you use attribution share alike or attribution, you have to attribute it. And then share everything. Again, this is asking for more of your time. That is very precious and important, and I respect that. But you want to try and make everything as freely available as possible on different websites. And if you do have to use a proprietary resource, so maybe you're making like a quiz based on a textbook or other things, or even something simple as a YouTube video or a podcast you can embed. Best practice is still to contact the rights holder. Even if they don't respond to you, just contacting them is best practice. Kind of like if you're a journalist reporting on something, it's good to call them. Even if they don't take your call, you can say you called them. And then you also want to get in touch with other teachers and build kind of a personal learning network for this. Okay, get involved. The Quickversity page is kind of where I organize my stuff for this. It's linked to off Etherpad. You can download the slides. Teaching Lab is at dellab.cc. Contact me, see@danoff.org, and Twitter @danoff. Okay, and this presentation is left. Okay, so now I'm going to do a brief walkthrough of, so again, you put questions, suggestions on the tab if you'd like. But okay, and also I did not mention this before, but this was brought up at the last time I did this talk, 2011. This is a wonderful resource. This is betterlesson.com. So just to show this quickly, I'm not affiliated with this or anything, but this is a great way. So if you're a science teacher, lots of wonderful resources like marshmallow and catapults. And then also organized by, you saw over there, organized by different parts of science and level. And so you can put your resources into this wonderful website, betterlesson.com, and then it's downloadable. People can make comments. This one doesn't have comments. Lessons right there, and you can download it. Most of it is PowerPoint or Microsoft Word, which it's wonderful that it's there. So that is one option. This talk is in the Leading Edge Open, so therefore suggesting GitHub as a even better resource. So and also these times, this one, yeah. So these are licensed too. So this one's CC Attribution 3.0, which is very good. Okay, so GitHub, a little bit intimidating, I know. But this is my English language teaching repository. So the idea with this would be there'd be like a repository for a given subject where teachers are all working together, and then so teachers just type their lesson plans and upload it to the repository, and this is one place where you can just, you click the button, you can download 10,000 lesson plans or whatever immediately, or you can subset into different parts. Okay, so this is that. And as an example, this is a professor at the Illinois Institute of Technology. His name's Karl Stolley. And so, like, let's say this is his course materials for whatever you can say, his class. And this is the course website. This is the course calendar, and you get whatnot. So you could do, so you see this, and you're like, oh, this is really cool. And then, so all you have to do to get this over to your you can download it here, and then you can fork it in the top right. Thanks. You fork it there, and then it's immediately into my, so that whole thing is now into my GitHub account. And signing up for GitHub is very easy, just like, sign up, thank you. And then so this is example of one of my, like this is a month's worth of lessons that I put up in one file. But okay, so to show you to actually do it, so you have to use terminal, which can be intimidating, but it's very doable. So go into the folder, this is the ELT folder, and then git pull. This updates it with whatever has been happening in that folder. All right, go to the file. So let's say I want to update Word. That file you're just looking at. All right, insert new file. So you go into your favorite text editor, and like this is a sample lesson plan. You save it into that folder. You git push the file name. No, sorry, git add first. And give a message. Okay, so that was, I made that seem more complicated than it actually is. Apologize for that. But so now in my ELT repository, it is not there, but it should be there. And, oh, here we go. Is this? Gotcha. Sample lesson plan. So this is sample lesson plan. So it's right there. And then if that interface was intimidating for you, you can also just, there's definitely people at this conference who explain GitHub much better than I just did. But if that was intimidating, you can just also just edit anything, right? By clicking edit like I just did. You can see that. Click this button, edit. And also keeps track of all the changes that you do over time. And other people can very easily come in and edit this same lesson plan. Okay, and I think that is it. So if you have any questions, yes, sir.
As a developer, I think everyone should use the timeline, but GitHub does have a really awesome graphic interface.
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
And if you need help getting started, it works really well for things like not super complicated good stuff.
Like you're saying like a text file, or
Well, it manages all of the like adding files.
Oh, the graphical,
checking out repos.
the user interface, right.
There's a GUI for that. And
Yeah.
It integrates with the website, so you can like check out branches and stuff via the website.
Definitely, yeah. No, yeah, I mean, so if that was the same thing, I recommend just using the, as he said, the graphical user interface is wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, and they also, you can do a command line for Windows and Mac as well. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What collaboration in kind of planning communication? And
Yes.
how do you integrate communication among a team or a community working together to build something?
Yes, that's a wonderful question. So, so you can do that via email group. With GitHub, I believe there is a way where you can do that. The previous one I showed, Better Lesson, they have like comments here, so that if you're in this community, you can make comments. There's not any in this one, as well as MediaWiki. Oh, and also, so like this was a sample. Like this is a lesson plan I did based off of what, I mean this is a syllabus based off of what the other guy had. Okay, but yeah, so in MediaWiki, you can just click discussion on any page. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.